everybody. Welcome to the first ever, I guess, Guerilla Football Denver. Not really first ever. Nate Jackson's been taking over, talking a lot of football here in this studio. I am Liv Moods, joined by also Brandon Krisztal with KOA Denver. I like to call him BK because it's easier. But we are talking all things Denver Broncos as of right now, which could be good, could be bad. I just called them a dumpster fire.
I was gonna say,
Nate said sometimes you have to burn the garbage, which is
right.
very, very true. But obviously last season there was a lot of ups, downs, money spent, maybe not well spent. But we've made some changes in the offseason to this Denver Broncos team. Obviously, Sean Payton now in his second year with a very different roster. No Russell Wilson, no Justin Simmons, no Jerry Jeudy. I think we should start by talking about the culture of the Denver Broncos, because to me that felt like a very large issue last season. Right off the top, Nate, how do you feel like the culture is maybe changing for the better as we enter this upcoming season?
I think the culture improves when your quarterback no longer has an office upstairs.
I
think your culture improves when your quarterback doesn't have a team of his own personnel that are wearing his own gear, walking around the facility, giving him different advice than the actual coaches on the football team. I think Russell Wilson, as good of a guy as he is, as much as he tried to be a great teammate, sucked up a lot of the air in that building and made a lot of people feel a little bit weird. A little weird, okay? And you know, the monster truck.
Weird is a good word, I would say, to describe Russell Wilson.
It's not used enough. But he drove in on a monster truck in the first day of training camp, and he had his own jersey on. Then he had a photographer taking pictures of him as he walked out of the car. That's weird, right?
It's weird.
And so, guys on a team don't want that guy to be the leader, I don't think. So I think the fact that whoever is going to be your quarterback leader is a much different dude who doesn't have that sort of energy around him is going to be great for the culture. Jerry Jeudy being gone, I think as much as the guys maybe like Jerry, I think that's going to be a breath of fresh air too, because Jerry was a very emotional player, and I
think he was immature as well.
He was very immature, and he kind of demanded a lot of energy, and he threw a lot of tantrums. Justin Simmons is a different kind of loss because he was so good,
hurt a little bit.
So professional. But he also was there for all the losing, and so how do you reckon that? So I think Sean Payton talked about the youth and the energy of this team, and he's pretty excited about it. And I think losing those three guys, I wish them well, but I think it's going to help the culture.
I love that, BK.
It's funny, Justin Simmons is not only still in town where he's training with our guy Shelby Harris, he's going to live here forever. It's a done deal. I think he may be.
Are you his real estate agent?
Your neighbor? No, I've talked to him about it at when I think I saw him at one of the basketball games, and I was like, hey, what's kind of the plan? He's like, no, this is home. He's like, I'd go back to Florida, I think. But he's like, we're not leaving. My wife never wants to leave. My friends are here, kids. Like, this is it. Even if he goes and plays somewhere else, and his kids aren't that old. It's like, first grade and younger. But he's like, we'll figure out the school. I'm like, he'll be fine. But Justin's going to be around. In fact, I'm emceeing his charity event Thursday.
Congratulations,
so
that'll be fun.
He's in town because Denver means that much to him. And I think there's a world where if nothing really blows him away, and it certainly hasn't financially, that if the Broncos felt they needed him, they could get him back at certainly a lesser number. I know that opportunity probably could have happened before. I wasn't told that directly by him, but this is talking to people in the know. Losing Justin, I think, hurts on the field as well as off the field, but losing Russ is kind of addition by subtraction in so many ways. For as talented as he is, you're dealing with all the other stuff. The money thing is going to hurt. And then Jerry Jeudy, I think just needed a fresh start. But something Nate and I were kind of talking about right before we got on air is just going into year two with Sean Payton or any coach, which is something that the Broncos haven't had a lot of, and going into year two with a coach that isn't on the hot seat, right? Or isn't like, oh, who's going to replace Vic Fangio? Who's going to replace Vance Joseph if things don't work out? You didn't think Nathaniel Hackett was going to get replaced going into year one, but you never even got to year two. So knowing a guy that's won that many games, has everything the way he wants it, there's nothing new. It's new to some of the new players and a handful of the new staff. He's got plenty of people that have worked for him forever or worked around him forever, but now everybody else that was new last year, this is how we do it. On this day we do this. On this week we do this. It's all set.
Are we gonna have patience if he isn't good?
I was just gonna say, it's so funny that you say that, because now I feel like we're having these conversations. Russ, to me, was the fall guy a lot last season, and for good reason, right? You pay him that much money, your expectation is rightfully high, and when you walk in like you're that guy and then you don't perform like that guy, it rubs people the wrong way, especially as sports fans. At the end of the day, all we want is for our team to win. It's that simple for us. Now, is it that simple realistically? No, there's a lot of moving parts. A lot of things have to go right. But that's what we want as sports fans. And so now it makes me wonder, okay, you eliminate Russell Wilson, you get rid of an immature Jerry Jeudy. Sean Payton doesn't really have any fall guys anymore. So if it's not working still, again, it does take time. But as sports fans, we don't have patience. We know this. We don't care about how long it takes. We just want to see it right now. So it'll be interesting how the tone towards Sean Payton will continue to evolve and change, because he's losing fall guys. It's on Payton now. If it doesn't work, it's on you. It's not on Russ anymore.
But the best thing that happened, and this is one other thing we were talking about, because we're going to get to the quarterback. You start that rookie quarterback, you're going to get a little bit longer runway. If he has
you have more time to figure it out.
If he has to start Jarrett Stidham, and it isn't like, oh, Bo's just not ready, but we know he's going to get there. But if Jarrett Stidham wins that job, and I don't think he's going to, or if somehow Zach Wilson does, but it's because he's the least bad option, you know, then that shortens that, I think, honeymoon period for Sean Payton, because he basically gets a do-over from last year.
Let's be real. Broncos fans are out of patience.
Oh, no question.
Like this whole, we got to just figure it out. Growing pains. Like, I'm sick of it. I'm done. I don't want to have to wait any longer. I want to see wins. I want to see points on the board. I want to see good defense. I mean, even our defense last season started off really worrisome and then kind of flipped things around. I mean, I remember that Miami game. I didn't want to show my face in public for a minute. I mean, I put the Broncos gear at the back of the closet for a second. I was like, I'm not going to let anybody know what team. I mean, and of course, people know, but.
You took it back, put it back in the front of the closet.
I was, to be honest, I was being a bad fan.
I
gave up. I was over it. I was like,
a lot of folks were pretty upset by that game.
It was
You know what I mean?
rough.
And you just said that, like, Bronco fans are sick of having patience, but that actually is the thing that they have to have.
I know.
Because we've been through this vertigo of a new coach, a new quarterback. This ain't working. Try this, try this, try this. And nothing, like, you never really get the rhythm. You never get to know one another. You never get to build on something. Exactly. So Vegas has the Broncos winning 5.5 games this year.
Jeez.
The expectations are very low. PFF has them as the very worst roster in the league. Okay, 32nd out of 32.
Ouch.
So expectations are very low nationally. Okay, within that facility, I don't think the expectations are that low. They believe they can win. But I'm looking at Sean Payton's decision that he's got to make between these three quarterbacks to start the season. What do you want to find out? Because Zach Wilson has 33 starts in the NFL. He's a number 2 draft pick. He went 11-22, but he was in a really bad situation there.
Right.
Situations. It's like it kept changing on him. But
So do you want to throw Zach Wilson out there to begin the season and see if he's any good? And if not, just move on? Do you want to throw Jarrett Stidham out there because he's sort of your veteran? Or do you want to start with Bo Nix right off the bat and build something towards the future with a young talent around him? I think it's a conversation they are having. It's not like this is Bo Nix, green light. I think that there's some philosophy behind it.
Absolutely. And honestly, I don't want the patience. I think we have to have it. And so in my opinion, I would go Bo Nix, and I would build around a Bo Nix that's young, that is talented, but he's kind of a polarizing player, because I think a lot of people, I was just having a conversation at a 4th of July barbecue about Bo Nix and how he wasn't that, he was put into a system in college that was pretty much built for him. He didn't have to be all that impressive. And so a lot of people want to downplay the talent that he is.
Why is that the narrative around him, that he didn't have to be that impressive?
He still have to get the ball there.
I mean, 77% completion. He set a record. He threw for 45 touchdowns and 3 picks. You can't just slip and fall into that sort of performance.
Of course not.
61 starts in college.
You know how sports fans are. We think we know everything. We think we are better than the people on the field. Let's be real. But I had this conversation, and I don't think there's a good amount of Broncos fans.
Which side of the conversation did you fall on? Were you like, this dude's being inflated, he's not as good as we think, or he's really good and he's going to fit well in this system?
I don't like to ever call a Broncos quarterback really good until I've seen it. Okay,
He's really good in college. He's really good in college.
If you're a Broncos fan, you know better than to do that. Unless it's Peyton Manning, who I believe we sold our soul for, because post Peyton Manning, I don't know what's going on.
That is something.
It's wild. But I am on the side of, I again, like you, I don't think you just have a college career like that and then fall flat. But we do see college quarterbacks who are exceptional on the college level have the growing pains. It takes me back to the Caitlin Clark conversation of, yes, she was a rock star in college, but there are going to be growing pains. Of course there are. It's 2 very different leagues for a lot of different reasons. But I do think he's a talent. More importantly, I think that Sean Payton, as irritated as he may have made me last season, he does know how to build successful teams around good quarterbacks. And I think that Bo Nix is a good quarterback. Do I think he's an exceptional quarterback? No. But I also think neither was Russell Wilson, and we emptied our wallets for him.
Yeah.
So,
but Russell Wilson had thrown 300 touchdowns in his NFL career. Now, a lot of them were off script, and that was kind of the biggest issue. My thing with Bo Nix, and you're going to have to bring this back against me if it doesn't work out, but maybe it's because I read a quote from Joe Burrow earlier today, and then I was just thinking about Joe Burrow, and I mentioned Joe Burrow to you. Joe Burrow is without question the number 2 quarterback anybody in the league would take after Patrick Mahomes. I can't say anybody, but the consensus.
I wouldn't say without question. You can't make a blanket statement that guy, on a guy who's been that injured, has had really one season that he's led his team the entirety of the season.
If you ask enough personnel people, and I get the group think, and Sean Payton talks about the train, you want to know what they're saying on it, but you don't necessarily want to get on it. After Mahomes, I think most personnel people would want Joe Burrow. Now the Chargers might want Justin Herbert, and the Bills want, but I'm saying in general, if you're and Jordan Love may pat. Okay, but so Joe Burrow, dad's a coach, right? Football lifer, starts at one huge program, high expectations, doesn't even have anywhere near the playing time that Bo Nix certainly had at his dad and grandpa's alma mater, where his dad was also a quarterback. But then he goes to LSU, where he's got pros everywhere, and has the best season in the history of college football. Bo Nix goes to Oregon, where, okay, the system was around him, and he's got pro receivers, and he's got pro linemen, and there's a really good defense over there. And he ends up having a great end to his college career, even if they couldn't beat Washington. Really successful. So, is Bo Nix the next Joe Burrow?
Yes.
The next healthy Joe Burrow? I'm not ready to go there. But the point is, certain situations in college can make you better.
Right.
And I guess Joe Burrow also has great receivers in the NFL. We don't know what this receiving core is going to be or what the ultimate receiving core will be. I think as it relates to a rookie quarterback, you just want to see signs, and you know the difference. You've played with enough quarterbacks, seen enough quarterbacks. Paxton Lynch comes in there, and you can see the panic. And you're like, all right, what are we doing? Okay, Tim Tebow, for as great as he was in college, you knew that his inability to throw consistently was going to be a problem. And so...
yeah, he's a quarterback who couldn't throw.
Yeah, quarterback who can't throw.
That's a
not
big
great.
issue, I think. Yeah.
Kind of a red flag.
And so... I think that you just want to be able to see signs, right? Peyton Manning, no one, again, he was number 1 overall. Nobody was running away as he's throwing 28 picks and they're going 3-13 with the Colts. And who was it last year?
But would that be allowed to happen these days? A guy to throw 28 picks?
Probably not, just because of the way completion percentages value.
Hell no.
Yeah.
And the understanding the analytics of don't beat yourself up.
So the way quarterbacks develop now is different. The leash we give them is smaller, you know, to allow guys to go out there and make mistakes. If Bo Nix starts off 2-11 and he has 21 picks in 13 games, do you think he's going to finish the season?
No, then you think you have the next Zach Wilson.
Right, and then you move on from him, right?
Right.
And he very well might be the next Peyton Manning.
Well, because in my opinion, and I've said this since last season, and I've taken quite a bit of heat, but what's new? I take heat on the daily because I don't know how to shut my mouth, which is fine.
Do you get like irritated by the heat, or do you?
Oh no!
Are you ever like,
it's like gasoline in the car. I'm ready to keep revving the engine. I could give a crap about the trolls. Yeah, it actually motivates me. But I said many, many times last season that Russell Wilson to me was not the issue. Now, from a football perspective, that's how I felt because Russell actually did not, on paper, have a horrible, horrible year. Now, it's a team sport. When you really break it down on the culture side of things, yes, if you have a team that's not, I mean, we know there are conversations between teams happening in the NFL about a completely separate salary cap for quarterbacks in the league. Bananas. But we know the impact that quarterbacks have, not only in the market of getting quarterbacks, but also on a team. It reminds me of how star-driven the NBA is at times. You know, you've got a LeBron James that calls the shots, and he can basically pick what his roster looks like from year to year. Our quarterbacks mean a lot in the NFL. They get paid very well. The expectations are always very high. So from a culture perspective, Russell Wilson was a big problem. But we live in this culture where, to your question, would you be able to throw that many picks in a season? Absolutely not, because we're stat people. We want to see wins. We want to see
hang on,
production.
Let me see what goes along with that. 2-11. But it's 3 touchdowns for every 2 picks.
And then how are you 2-11?
Because your defense isn't good. And I'm not saying their defense isn't, but I'm saying what.
So that's what I'm saying with Russell Wilson.
My point is, there's an eye test. There's an eye test.
Okay.
Here's the thing about Russell Wilson, and you know, I said he threw 292 or 300, but 292 touchdowns in the regular season in Seattle. I still haven't gone back and done it because I don't really want to, but I got to think someone has. I keep wanting someone to give me this answer. Of those 292 touchdowns, take away a quick slant on the goal line. Basically the pick play that's not a great throw. I mean, it's a good throw to fit it in there. But if you're one-on-one, a slant on the goal line or whatever.
You're taking away.
I'm taking away just
a slant for a touchdown.
I'm saying
because
of
it's
those.
Close.
No, I'm saying of those 292, let's take some slants away and just some called go routes, like straight 9 route.
Why would you take away a go route?
They're good throws. I want to know. Lots of you. Tim Tebow could throw a go route. Sometimes. My point being, how many just came in the rhythm and the progression of the offense? Because you go back to even last year and the numbers that he had that weren't terrible. And Courtland Sutton had 10 touchdown catches. Of those 10 touchdown catches, how many came as he was the primary read and the play was run as called versus the craziest catch of the year maybe against the Bills on Monday Night Football?
Yeah. Clearly not enough for Sean Payton to keep him around.
Right. And
that's why he's gone, because he doesn't operate on schedule from inside the pocket. Russell Wilson never hit his back foot and threw the ball on time. Right. And so that's what drove Sean Payton crazy about him. Now, Liv, you mentioned that you don't think it was Russell's fault, and then you mentioned being irritated with Sean Payton. So is it Sean Payton? Is he the problem in your mind? Like, what irritated you about Sean Payton last year?
I think I struggled a little bit with his lack of, to me, I'm like a people reader, not like in a witchy way. You know how people are like, oh, I can feel your energy. Not like that. But I do get a pretty good read on people. And from jump, it felt like Sean Payton was never about Russ.
Yeah.
That was made pretty clear to me very early. I was like, he's not about this. He does not want him here. He does not want him a part of this team, which, again, fine. I wish he would have done a little bit of a better job faking that, because I think he played into the BS that was thrown Russ's way just as much as the trolls did. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that Russ had a good game and it was never acknowledged. You know, I'm sure there were so many things that happened behind closed doors that I am not aware of, that I didn't ever get to see or hear. But I didn't always like how it was. Again, Russ was the fall guy. Sean was not perfect in his first year, and most coaches aren't. But felt like there was very limited accountability he personally took, and it was just, I don't know. He came in guns a-blazing, which we needed, because there was a lot of messes to clean up before he was able to actually be the coach he probably wanted to be last year. But he just made it a little too obvious to me that he was not about Russ, which is fine. But when your coach isn't even about Russ, how can you expect your team to be about him?
And then the rest of the locker room.
He played into that negative culture. So it's like you can blame Russ for the bad culture because he came in and wanted an office and a parking space and this, that, and the other. But Sean didn't help that either. You know what I mean? He played into the Russ. He's a weirdo. We don't like him. He doesn't fit here just as much as the Twitter trolls did. Which I'm like, come on, grow up.
More so than probably any other sport, in football you kind of have to run the play that's called, right? Most of the time. Basketball, it can break down, but a great player is still going to find a way to get the ball in the basket, okay? I think that might happen in hockey some, and in baseball, it's pretty straightforward, I guess, there. But I guess if they tell you to bunt and you swing away, that's not, but they tell you to bunt, right? If everyone is trying to run the same play, right, and they're trying to run the play that's called, and on defense, they're trying to do what their defensive coaches are asking. So even though I want to just go get the quarterback, my job is to take up these two linemen so that guy can go get the quarterback. If I do my job, we have success, and my teammate gets there, we have success. So even if Sean's feeding into that, if the rest of the team is like, we're all still running these plays, whatever they are, and because he is not as prone to run them or stick with them or run through them the way they're supposed to, and he ad-libs and ends up creating something awesome like the throw to Courtland Sutton, but not doing what everyone else was trying to do from the jump,
right?
Then you're rowing a boat in two different directions.
Well, the offensive football plays, like pass plays, there's an answer for anything they do. Any coverage they throw at you, there's an answer, because there's 5 eligible receivers. If they're in cover 2, you throw it here. If they're in cover 1, you get to choose between these two guys. If it's cover 3, you hit that guy in the seam. If it's cover 4 and we get a blitz here, you hit that guy. So there's an answer for everything, and you've been over it all week long. So when you see it in a game, and you've talked about it all week, if they do this, you throw there. Got it, Russell? Got it, coach. And then you go out there in the game, and that thing happens, and everybody sees it, But Russell, he doesn't see it, and he doesn't even look at the guy that we talked about all week was going to be open, and he goes somewhere else, runs around for a while, dumps it off to a running back who gets 4 yards when this guy's running free down the field. I think that's ultimately what made Sean Payton say, fuck this guy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. You can't, if you can't follow directions, then what do we do?
And that's what made some of the receivers frustrated. I mean,
Courtland you talk about Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah. No, I understand.
Running open like
I understand.
Yeah.
And Courtland Sutton.
But also with Jerry Jeudy, to me, a little bit, some of that was just entitlement, too. It's like, dude, even without Russ, we've had issues with Jeudy having this sense of, I'm
open, throw me the ball, but then catch it. I mean, but it happened with Teddy Bridgewater. Like, Jerry Jeudy's frustration, there are moments throughout his career where he's very open and doesn't get the ball. Now, there are also moments, we saw it twice last year, once in the end zone, maybe in that same game against the Bills, and either the week before or week after on kind of a fade that he had to stop in it, but it hit him in the hands. And you have to hold up your end of the bargain, too, as a 15th pick.
Correct.
But back to what you're saying about the receivers and Courtland Sutton and all of that.
No, yeah, exactly. Courtland Sutton had a good year with 10 touchdowns, but he led the team with like 780 yards, which isn't great. You know, he was like 49th in the NFL in yardage, and he led the team. So it was a difficult year for receivers on the Broncos other than those 10 touchdowns. The Broncos had a hard time scoring in the first half. They had a hard time scoring their opening drive out of the second half. And I think that made Sean Payton very frustrated. It made the defense very frustrated as well. You know, the Broncos haven't had a double-digit sack player since 2018, and a lot of that is because the offense has been so bad that they can't score in the first half.
Sold our souls.
You're right about that because Peyton Manning did so much for the organization.
Still does.
Everyone relied on him so much that when he left, there was a vacuum, and it was like, oh, we got to find the next Peyton Manning. No, you don't.
He sucked the life out of Denver, basically.
Yeah.
He took it all with him. All the energy, gone. I was like, wow, this is going to be a long. So I guess my question for you guys is then, we had a comment come up on the screen that was, Bo Nix is good, but I don't feel like he's a good day one starter.
Were you able to read that?
I am, yeah. Good eyesight.
For sure.
Yeah. Good eyesight over here, yeah. Do you agree with that? Do you think there's going to be some growing? Again, I feel like the story of Broncos fans' lives is the growing pains that come with being a Broncos fan. Are we going to see some growing pains if they decide to go with Bo Nix?
Yeah.
Do you feel like Sean is leaning that way? Let's start there.
I do, and I think that's the right move. I think there are going to be some growing pains. There are going to be some tough moments, but I think let's just lean in and go for it because there's a lot of young.
To at this point.
Yeah, because Jarrett Stidham started 2 games last year where you like, wow, Jarrett, this guy's playing really well. He's the quarterback of the future for the Broncos. I don't think you had that feeling watching him barely beat Easton Stick in the the LA Chargers and then lose to the Raiders in the last game of the year. I don't think he played, great.
Right.
They like him there. You know, he wears a hoodie at practice, which is pretty cool. He's like the only guy. Have you seen that? He's got a hoodie coming out the back. And then Zach Wilson, he's just made so many mistakes that I don't think you should start off the season with him there. I think Bo Nix, you picked him at 12 for a reason. I think he's a very accurate, smart player, Sean Payton's kind of guy. And let's start building for the future here. 5.5 wins, that's what Vegas thinks. They're, $50 million?
Screw Vegas. No, I'm kidding.
Well, all I'm saying is expectations are low.
They are.
So
they
you
really
have a little bit of rope here.
Totally.
So let's go ahead and go for it and take our lumps,
I agree.
And one more thing about the beginning of an NFL season. Training camp isn't as long. You don't have double days. You don't have as much practice in mini camps. You don't have as much preseason stuff. Teams come out kind of rusty.
For sure.
This sloppy football. So there's an expectation of a little bit of sloppiness in the first month that Bo Nix could actually use to his benefit.
Well, he can use that to his advantage for sure.
The other thing that he can use to his advantage is he's kind of, at least by all accounts, a bit of a football savant. And Sean Payton prides himself in being able to outsmart the defensive coaches, right? So in a world where Sean Payton and his longtime staff of assistants craft a game plan every week to beat a Seahawks team that was a playoff team 2 years ago, but now has a rookie head coach, one that people like and have high opinion of, coming over from Baltimore. But you've got a rookie head coach. Yeah, you're on the road there. Okay, let's see. And it's Geno Smith. All right, that doesn't scare you. It's not Patrick Mahomes in week 1. Steelers are a playoff team. That's going to be a wild game across the board. But they've got a playoff defense for sure. I just think Sean Payton is going to minimize the opportunities for Bo Nix to make a lot of mistakes. And Bo Nix is not prone to make a lot of mistakes. So if he has 21 picks, it's because he probably also has 45 touchdowns. He's throwing it all over the yard, which seems unlikely.
Yeah.
But does he have 10 picks and 8 touchdowns because every time they're in the end zone. He checks to the or in the red zone. They're checking to the run play, and they're just trying to bang it in, or just kicking a field goal and not throwing into traffic.
Yeah, the way you help out a rookie quarterback is with a strong running game, right, and a good defense. And so they got to be focusing on that stuff. But you talk about
Bucks and Jets too, which are teams. Bucks were a playoff team at the Bucks at the Jets.
Yeah.
3 road games out of the gate, but I just think Sean is going to hold his hand.
Sean, and I hope Sean doesn't do what he did last year to start the season with a surprise onside kick in the first play of the game.
What the hell was
Do you remember that? You know
Balls
what
of steel, Sean.
You know what I like? No, that is like, you know what I like in that too? Have you watched The Bachelor?
Of course.
You know the very first episode when they get out of the limo, and there's always someone who's doing something so crazy when they get out of the limo,
control, yes.
like dressed like a freaking dinosaur and juggling freaking chainsaws, and they're like, "Oh, I hope to have a drink with you inside."
Yes.
Okay, you're gonna be the
Yes,
chainsaw
Sean.
juggling dinosaur.
Sean was trying to get the first impression, Rose, and it did not work.
It backfired. He got fucking.
Well,
he got sent packing.
You
Like, he didn't even get to.
you
the house.
You lose 17-16. I'm not sure that didn't only surprise the Raiders that it was tried. It might have surprised other people that weren't necessarily in the know that was a Sean Payton special. The Raiders scored a touchdown on that drive.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're probably winning that game because the defense holds you to 10 points from the rest when you get the whole field. When it's not, you get the ball at 45 now with that momentum. So yeah, sometimes you can be a little too smart for your own good.
But it's also like if the Broncos had won that game, won another one, they make the playoffs. Is Russell Wilson still here? He probably would be, right? Like
I would say so.
Yeah, so maybe it was all his grand plan to get rid of Russell by doing a bunch of stupid shit.
Again, and that's I think again when I go back to like what my problem with Sean Payton is it just didn't. I think as Broncos fans, like I've said a million times, we're out of patience, and I know that we're going to need a lot of it moving forward. We've got either a rookie quarterback that we're about to invest in, or we have Zach Wilson. So get comfortable. It's going to be a long ride, and I think as Broncos fans, we need to just prepare ourselves for that. But I think that's where I had an issue with Sean Payton last season was how do you expect the fans and the team to get on board with a quarterback that you very clearly don't support and don't like? I just don't think he liked the guy, which again, fine. There's not always going to be that compatibility, but it is almost impossible to have a successful season if your quarterback and your coach aren't seeing eye to eye. So is that all on Sean Payton? No, there were things that Russ probably did or shouldn't have done that would have maybe helped that relationship, but it was made very clear very early Sean Payton was not about Russell Wilson. So how does that make fans feel when we know we just emptied the bank on him and our own coach can't stand him? Well, what are we doing? It just felt like another season of a 3-ring circus all over again.
There is nuance. There are detail. Like you had a new ownership group. First of all, it's their money. The cap people can get as creative as they want. The $50 million hurts, but it's not as debilitating as it sounds when you say it out loud, which I know is crazy. We're talking about $50 million.
Why is it not as debilitating?
Well, I guess I don't know what they were doing with that $50 million otherwise. If they would have kept Justin Simmons at 16 of it, right? So that's still $34 million if Russ just retired, right?
And the salary cap went up by $25 million.
The salary cap jumped more than it does in a normal year because it was kind of a COVID correction, so it won't jump as much this year.
Right.
It'll still go up $10 million. They're gonna be in great shape salary cap wise next year. But just like Russ,
one more year.
But just like
hold on,
just like Russ wasn't Sean's guy, Bo Nix is. He is not being bashful about it. He's more complimentary of Bo Nix, and from the draft and everything else through the spring and a little bit in the early summer.
If we start our season 0-4, will he still have the same tone though?
Well, I think it's your job, depending on how a quarterback's playing. But if you've invested in this young guy, unless you just think he doesn't have it and isn't going to get there, to figure out why did it not work that you're 0-4? Is it really his fault, or how are you propping him up so that you end up 4-4? Whatever. I don't have the whole schedule. I was just looking at the first 4 games, but I think your patience gets shorter when you lose. That's why going back to that onside kick. No, Sean thought he was going to catch him off guard.
So our patience is like this, by the way.
Well, I'm saying, but when
the shortest it could possibly be.
But when you're a coach, right? Like you've been in those buildings.
For sure.
After a loss and after a second straight loss, right? The sky is falling. So the way they started last year, I think part of it too is we can't be as shitty as we were last year out of the gate. I mean, they were 1-5. Lost 70-20 in a game that we were obviously talking about a little earlier.
Yeah, that one hurt.
So
that one was embarrassing.
If you lose these first few games or lose a couple of them, and you don't do stuff to hurt yourself, right? That's the other thing, is the NFL is so much about managing your own risk, I guess, right? If you don't give them an opportunity to beat you by doing stupid shit, like as smart as Sean is, I look at Andy Reid all the time and wonder, why are you taking the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands so that you can run an end around with who's the receiver that got cut because he couldn't catch from the Giants?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like they're it's Thursday Night Football. The Broncos keep taking the ball away. So let's run an end around and let him try to throw it. When you have the best quarterback, maybe in the history of the game, but certainly in the league right now.
Correct.
It's a long way to go to catch some of the people ahead of him. Let's take it out of his hands and give it to Kadarius Toney, right?
Yeah,
and
Kadarius.
Patrick Mahomes is good at getting the ball in the damn end zone, Andy Reid, and he does it every year. And I talk to my friends that cover the Chiefs. I'm like, why does he do all this stupid shit? Like, it's cute. Do you really need a shovel pass to Travis Kelce? Just throw him the fucking ball.
Not when you have Patrick Mahomes.
Right, just throw him a ball.
Jesse Mon.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, Jesse has a question. Nate, how does losing in a season like this impact the locker room? Yeah, I think that actually was funny because I had Shelby on my podcast like a month or so ago, and he talked about when he was in the like the worst thing in a locker room is to draft a rookie quarterback. They hate it because it feels like we're throwing in the towel on the season. You don't believe in us. You think we're that shitty, so we have to start with one of these guys. So I think there's an element of that in the locker room now. Like, okay, we're stripping this thing down. You got rid of Russell. You benched him at the end of the season. They may not have liked him. They may have liked him. I don't know. But they're moving on from Russell. Justin Simmons, who is the veteran on the defensive side, and the leader of the team, Mr. All-Pro, and like Mr. Everything in the community.
He's gone. Yeah.
And then Jerry Jeudy. So there is probably a feeling of, okay, we're starting this thing over. But there's some optimism in that because there's a lot of guys who are unproven on this roster. And there's a lot of disrespect being thrown their way right now.
Of course.
And so they can foster this sort of underdog mentality. Nobody believes in us. We're going to prove them wrong. And Sean Payton is gassing them up for that. I mean,
and that does sometimes work.
It does
That's all a
work.
team needs is to be underestimated and to basically have no expectations.
But that happens
to
in the
prove
league.
Yourselves.
That happens in the league every single year. That's why there's whatever that number is, 4, 6, 7 new playoff participants, especially now that there's 2 more playoff teams that have been added in recent years, that there is that turnover of, oh, now it's the Seahawks' turn. They snuck in with Geno Smith after losing Russ. Oh, the Bucks, Tom Brady retires. Well, Baker Mayfield.
C.J. Stroud is a rookie.
Right, C.J. Stroud is a rookie. The Texans hadn't come anywhere near, I guess with Deshaun they were near the playoffs, right? But
they made the playoffs with Deshaun.
Maybe, okay. But there was no title expectation. But then
maybe, I don't know.
When they fall off the cliff because of the Deshaun stuff, you're like, okay, now they're back picking first.
Right.
So it's not hard to get that going once you win a game or two, especially with a young team that doesn't know any better.
So you're saying you thinking the Broncos could make a playoff run?
Depends on how good Bo Nix is.
The deep breath.
It does.
Depends on how good
there is a lot of pressure on Bo Nix.
I don't have a problem betting the over on 5.5. I did pull up the entire schedule.
You wouldn't bet the over on 5.5?
No, I said I don't have a problem betting it.
Oh, you don't have a problem betting it?
I'll probably put, I don't know, 10 grand, 20 grand on it.
You'll probably
You are out of your effing mind.
Wow.
Do you guys hear this?
That's that KOA money right there.
That is insanity. Yeah. This guy has lost it.
No.
I think
but
before
I don't know, $100 on the
maybe,
over?
maybe.
Sure.
I think before we wrap things up today, I want to talk a little bit specifically about the AFC West. We've seen the Raiders be pretty dominant, which I can't, as a Broncos fan, I can't wrap my brain around it. It just doesn't. It's not supposed to happen. It's not normal. It's not okay, and it just needs to change.
Yep.
So we've got
You're
the Raiders.
underestimating Aiden O'Connell and Jarrett Stidham, who beat the Broncos.
I mean, for God's sake, we've got to figure that thing out. So we've got the Raiders, who are like kind of owning the Broncos as of late. You've got Patrick Mahomes in this division, which just sucks no matter who you are because it's Patrick Mahomes. Back-to-back Super Bowl champions. They're just phenomenal.
That's how Chiefs fans felt for John Elway's entire career, for the record.
Yeah, well,
Except
now
for
it's
the 2
their
years
turn,
Montana was
and I
there.
hate it.
Yeah,
and then
supposed
you've
to.
got Harbaugh and the Chargers, and you've got Herbert finally, I think, getting the coach that his talent has probably deserved for some time now. I love Justin Herbert. I think that Chargers team has a lot of potential. Getting a new coach, obviously, maybe there's some growing pains over there for them, but they have the talent for sure. What do you think, if you had to rank right now AFC West standings as a prediction, where would the Broncos fall? I would assume the Chiefs are probably
I'm
still sitting pretty
going
at
Chiefs
the top.
1. I'm going Chiefs 1.
You're going out on a limb, huh?
I'm going to go out on a limb, and
right.
especially in a year where that was the worst receivers that Patrick's going to have for a while.
I would say
and they
Chiefs
had the fastest kid in the history of the combine, and they had Hollywood Brown.
Yeah,
I'm going to go
Kelsey
Chiefs 1, Chargers 2, Broncos 3, Raiders 4.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm at.
I want to see Justin Herbert play well in big games because the talent is there, right?
Right.
But you saw the collapse against the Jags 2 years ago. That wasn't all on him. You've seen him throw some picks and bigs. He reminds me a lot of Phillip Rivers in that regard.
But to me, honestly, there were so many moments because I was a Chargers bettor a lot of the time. I was putting my money on this team because we called Justin Herbert in the betting community. We called him the backdoor cover king because a lot of times, the very end of a game, he's covering the spread for you, and he becomes, clutch for your wallet and your bank account.
And his numbers look good because you're like, oh, he had 350 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 picks. But when were those 2 picks?
I think some of those Chargers losses really were a coaching issue. There were so many moments where I was like, why is
Brandon Staley going for it on 4th and 6?
Right. What are they doing? So that's where it kind of makes me go,
that's why.
The coach change could be a really great thing for the Chargers. So that's why I put them at 2, because I do think Herbert's got the talent. He's the backdoor cover king. He's helped my wallet a few times. So for me, with a new coach, after watching how abysmal Staley was for so many, he should have been gone a long time ago, in my opinion. So the fact that he's finally out of there has got to feel refreshing for that program, got to feel good for that team and for Justin. So yeah, I'd probably go Chargers too. But I have to put the Broncos above the Raiders. My heart cannot have it any other way. Maybe I'm in denial, but I have to do it.
Like the Raiders have owned the Broncos over the
sickening.
last 4 or 5 seasons. It's like 8
7,
straight or
something. 8 of the last 9 or what? 8.
It's disgusting.
And the Broncos and the Raiders both had 8-9 records last year. Okay, but the Raiders beat them twice. So the Raiders finished ahead of the Broncos, and the Chargers were in last place. I think they were 5-12. I think it's going to be very similar this year. I don't believe in the Chargers. I don't believe in Jim Harbaugh. He's going to go in there and just get it right going again. I think he's an asshole. He's a weirdo.
He is a weirdo.
People don't like him.
Is he a weirdo?
Absolutely. He was in San Francisco for 4 years. He had a lot of success. They went to the Super Bowl, and then he just left. Why would someone do that?
That's a weirdo thing to do.
It's because everyone hated him.
That's a weirdo thing to do.
I have talked to people that have worked with him. They're like, yeah, I like working with him, but maybe it's just because he's so. Okay. But he's definitely weird.
Would you rather be called an asshole or a weirdo?
Weirdo. Yeah.
Yeah, because a weirdo just means you do things a little differently.
Would be.
Yeah, that's a tough combo.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to be both.
And if you're an asshole, then you better be good, right?
Okay, but what if you're a losing asshole?
Yeah.
Then you're not employed. You work at ESPN.
Then you're
or
an
Fox.
unemployed asshole. Then you start a podcast and you just talk shit about people.
Right.
You get a mic.
Like, oh, that asshole.
Exactly.
This guy sucks.
Then you get a mic and a podcast.
Or you're kicked out of the business.
Fair.
And you need one of your teammates to get a coaching job, and you get a college degree, and then you get to go hang out there.
But when it comes to the Raiders, though, I actually think that they hired the right guy, and I think that they're going to be decent, and they're going to edge out the Broncos in the standings. So I actually think it's going to be Chiefs, Raiders, Broncos, Chargers. I think the Broncos are going to eclipse that 5.5 win. I think they're going to win like 7 and maybe 8 games. But I think the Raiders are going to be right around 8 or 9, and the Chiefs are going to be right around 11 or 12.
So the Raiders are still the Broncos' daddy next season, is what you're telling me.
Yeah.
Sick.
Have the Broncos won in Vegas yet?
No. At some point
they have
it's
not.
Change, right?
It does.
We can't do this forever.
Hope is not a strategy. But
No way. We cannot do this forever.
The Raiders seem to remember that this is a rivalry, and the Broncos do not. The Raiders want to whoop the Broncos' ass every time they play them, and the Broncos are like, oh, maybe we'll win, maybe we won't.
I had a non-Broncos fan ask me, who's the Broncos' rival? I was like, well, growing up, when I would go to Broncos games, it was the Raiders for sure. First of all, they're the most terrifying fan base on the planet. I remember going to a Broncos game, and I was like, Mom, I didn't know it was Halloween.
In Denver or in
Denver?
Yeah.
Even in Denver, they were scaring me. I was
Try going to in Oakland.
No, I'm good. I'm okay.
When I played for the Broncos, my mom wouldn't go to those games because I'm from the Bay Area, so all my family and friends would go, but my mom would not because it was too much.
It's a lot.
The bus ride in.
Scary.
I have to think that you got more middle fingers on your trips to Oakland than all the other bus trips combined. Total.
We were rolling in on a bus, and like this grandma saw us, and she she was in tailgating. She walked up to the cooler all like slow and stuff. She opened the cooler, pulled out eggs, and just started chucking them at the bus. And they're like hitting the side of the bus.
The
grandma, man.
Oh, see,
they did not care.
What they don't realize, those are Bay Area businesses. That those buses are just rented.
Right, you're ruining your own property.
Yeah,
it's
like, hey, you're.
So you have the Chargers dead last in the AFC West.
I don't believe in them.
I agree. And you lose Austin Eckler, right?
Yeah.
You lose Keenan Allen. And so there's some turnover there. What'll be fascinating to see in the coming years, because I do think Antonio Pierce clearly has that locker room, so much so it got him the job. But Tom Telesco has built the Chargers roster over the last half dozen, 8, 9 years, and he kept getting to hire and fire coaches, which is weird because normally you don't get that. You get maybe 2 cracks, every now and then a third, as we're seeing with George Payton. George Payton's not going to get a chance to hire a 4th coach. It just seems unlikely unless they win for a decade and Sean retires. Tom Telesco knows how to eyeball talent. Derwin James, when healthy, was maybe one of the best safeties in football. He can't stay healthy. He drafted Joey Bosa. I get that was pretty straightforward. But these receivers, he found Austin Eckler. Mm-hmm. Justin Herbert, I guess, falls into your lap at 6, but he takes Herbert. A bunch of really good linemen, but even like Rashawn Slater. He's oft injured, a stud. But so Telesco can identify talent. And so I'm saying that now he's in Vegas, and he's going to be able to identify talent still in your division. So it's just something to be aware of, that he knows how to build a talented roster. They're not always healthy, and so that will continue to keep the Raiders more formidable than they were when Gruden and Mayock were building the roster.
Unfortunately, I think the AFC West will belong to the Chiefs as long as Patrick Mahomes is a quarterback for the Chiefs. That's how I feel. Yeah. I have stopped fading that man. I went to the Super Bowl this year.
Oh, you did?
I didn't go to the actual game, believe it or not. I prefer to watch the Super Bowl at home.
You just went to the parties?
I just went to the parties, exactly.
What was the best party?
What was the best party?
The EA Sports one was hard to beat because you had Big Boy and Killer Mike, then Green Day.
There you go.
And then Darius Rucker played a private after show where Tua Tagovailoa played guitar.
Wow.
So that's my vote.
I'm gonna be honest. I very quickly got out of Vegas.
Yeah.
I am not a nightlife person. I have the personality for it.
But you'd rather be on camera talking about a game?
If I need to turn up, I will. Don't get me wrong. I could throw down. Okay, I can turn up if I need to. But there's nothing better to me than like room service and a hotel bed and
Vegas
peace
is a good
and
spot
quiet.
for that.
Yeah, I don't like the nightlife. I don't like being outside in the wee hours. I just don't do it. It's not for me. So I didn't spend a ton of time in Vegas for the Super Bowl, but I did out there. Let everybody know that I was betting on the Chiefs. And as a Broncos fan, you're asking for...
But you like money. So.
Correct, and that's what I told everyone. I'm like, listen, I don't want this for us or for anyone, really.
I don't want to do this.
I don't want to do this, but I have
but
to, yes,
and
absolutely.
they were what, 3-point dogs, right?
Yeah.
So
the value was there. It was calling my name. Patrick Mahomes.
The easiest thing to do is say, I am picking the Chiefs to cover. And I would like to see the Niners.
Right. Even worse, I took him out right.
Well, no, because that's a good bet. But you're like, hey, it'd be cool if Kyle and John Lynch and these guys and Krisztal all win. All the Broncos fans, kind of got that brotherly connection with the Niners organization and have forever. You're one of those pieces, you and Bill Walsh. Yeah. And Mike, obviously. But, yeah, money's cool.
Money talks.
You can buy stuff with money.
Money
It's hard to pay your bills with fanship.
I agree. We'll take this last question before we wrap things up, because we'll be doing this again leading up to the Broncos season, so we'll have a lot to talk about.
I think Friday.
How many seasons until Harbaugh wears out his welcome with the Chargers organization?
Yeah, I say, 4.
4 is kind of the magic. The reason he stayed at Michigan is because their pockets are deeper. He's a Michigan man. It takes a little longer to build a program. But no, he was 4 years at San Diego, 4 years at Stanford, 4 years at San Fran. And trust me, some prominent people that I know, but some Michigan folks, they would have been fine if he had been 4 years at Michigan. I get he ultimately won them a championship and they finally beat Ohio State. But
the highlight of my life was my TCU Horned Frogs taking down Michigan.
Sure.
That's where you went?
I did.
Oh.
I did spend a lot of money to go to the championship game as well, where we got curb stomped, and it was super bad. But I was also drinking tequila soda and eating nachos, so I didn't really care.
I thought y'all were going to lose the way you lost to Georgia, but because Sonny Dykes was my running backs coach in high school, I bet on TCU to cover.
Well, that was silly.
But
you just said money talks.
I know. I let my emotions get the best of me. I'm like, this is going to be cool. Sonny's going to win. I told my neighbor because he was like, I was like, I think Georgia's going to win like 50-0. But
it was tough.
We'll see.
It was tough.
I think it was a Big 12 pride thing.
I did take TCU to beat Michigan, and that was a great bet. And that was
probably
one of the most fun football games I've ever been to in my life because Michigan fans, and TCU's small. People forget TCU's like a very small private school. So we didn't our fans showed up the best they could, but Michigan, I mean, it was yellow and blue throughout that entire place, and TCU
Look, the playoff hasn't
did
disappointed.
what they needed to do.
It hasn't disappointed, especially with the overtime, Alabama and Michigan last year. But I know we're trying to call it a day. I'm just curious, though. It's expanding to 12 teams. How excited are you for what college football playoff games have given, or even the BCS championship game most of the years? I didn't like how they would get there a lot of the time, but with now 12 teams, I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
I am very excited, mostly because that time period before they announce the college football playoffs feels like the damn election. I hate it. I want to turn every TV off. I don't want to log on to social media at all because I know someone's feelings are going to get hurt. There's going to be some.
But now
there's going to be some
versus
political.
12, you're not feeling as bad as when you have.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. I think it's going to be great. I
think
it's going to be great because I think every year there's that controversial. They should have been in and they weren't, and they got robbed. And what team was it last year? Was it
Bama?
Florida?
No. Oh, Florida State.
Because Florida State.
They were undefeated, right?
Tough.
Yeah.
That was tough. And it's like, well, the quarterback that helped get them there, was hurt. And it's like, well, the backup quarterback actually kept winning games. So he, that was tough for me. I was like, I feel bad for the fans and feel bad for the team that wasn't hurt. Like every year it feels like literally the election.
Yeah, with 12 teams now, it should be.
It should be more fun.
It'll be more democratic, whatever.
It might be more fair. Honestly.
Yeah, it should be.
I think it's going to be more fair. And you'll probably get some more of those like
Kansas
weird
Jayhawks
Cinderella TCU teams that you're like, where did they come from?
Or
now
Jayhawks
playing
this year?
You might get more of that, which keeps it fun. You get sick of seeing the same 4 teams every year, honestly. It gets dry, it gets boring. We're ready for something new. So I'm excited. I think it'll be great. Woo! Okay, well, this has been the first official, I guess, Guerilla Football Denver here with the 3 of us. GFD. Yeah, we should get some merch. That sounds really good. But we'll be back again this week, actually, Friday. I believe. Talking all things Denver Broncos. We'll be breaking down everything. The roster, the standings. We can even talk a little bit about the rest of the NFL and what that's going to look like. And maybe break down the Broncos' schedule even. Look at each game, figure out what we like, maybe even play some bets.
Hey.
And we'll be back. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon.